Hello, this is Andrine, a Jewish American priestess. It's been a little while since I've done one of these readings, but I'm back for the moment. And today we're going to do a reading about the upcoming transition, which is going from the month of Tevet into the month of Shvat, but also from the year of the dragon into the year of the snake, because we are transitioning at this new moon, which is on this Wednesday, I believe. Yes, this Wednesday, from dragon energy into snake energy. And so I have three sets of a pair of cards from three different decks, and you're welcome to choose one or more of these piles. I'll put timestamps down below. Each one of these pairs has a dragon card and a snake card, and we will look at where we're coming from in the dragon energy and where we're going to in the snake energy. And we'll use both Nordic runes and Hebrunes today in a new spread that I've never done before, so why not? So I'll give you a chance to choose. This first set of cards is from the Mythologia Fennica tarot deck from Finland. This set here in the center is the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit. And this third set of cards is from the Soul Cards abstract painting deck. So take a minute to decide which deck you'd like to choose or which pair of cards you'd like to choose. Again, you can choose more than one if you like. This is number 1, this one is number 2, and this is number 3. And then when we get into the reading, we'll flip those over and see where it takes us. Yeah, I'll see you in your separate readings. Welcome those of you who chose the cards from pile number 1. Again, like I said, this is from the Mythologia Fennica deck from Susanna Salo in Finland. And these are based on the Kalevala, which is the Finnish Eddas or runic stories, heroic stories of the people of Finland, of which I am, that is part of my heritage. So I've studied a bit of the stories. And these cards, this is a tarot deck, so it has also the traditional tarot meanings. Let's flip these over and see what we've got. So we've got the dragon and the domestic snakes is how I have chosen. There's several snakes in this deck, but these are the domestic snakes. So this is our dragon card, and it is represented by the 10 of Wands. Wands being the suit of fire. So that, and you can see in the background there's a gate and a fireball coming over the top, and looks like maybe birds or something on that gate. But it's that 10 of Wands, and traditionally the 10 of Wands is about carrying a burden, although in this case not so much. That's where we're coming from. So we'll start there, and I'll tell you a little bit about the dragon card in this deck. The dragon itself is, it's got a bunch of different myths in the Norse cultures as well as many other cultures, but generally the dragon represents courage and strength, like a warrior who's able to surmount any danger or challenge, being able to believe in yourself and your abilities, to defend your treasures fiercely when you need to, not being able to agree to compromise or be controlled, and being tested in different ways, but not being able to give up, fighting bravely against opposing forces, and clearing your way out of suffocating situations to be victorious. The battle may be draining, but the treasure will be yours in the end, and you will see it has all been worth the trouble. So where we're coming from in this past year, the dragon year, is this place of being able to stand up and defend, being able to guard what's important to us. And that makes sense for a dragon, but also for that 10 of Wands, where we're a little tired after this dragon year. And I know dragon years are challenging for everyone, but they're particularly challenging for people who were born in the year of dragon, which I was myself. So I can attest to that. That is a challenging year. And we're coming from this place of strength and defense and protection of that which is valuable to us. And so one of the ways I'm going to do this reading is I'm going to pull these apart. We'll go into the domestic snakes in a little bit. But I'm going to pull out some Hebrunes and runes to go with the dragon, where we're coming from. Then we'll have a little bridge, and then where we're going to. So we'll start out, and the way I'm going to do this today is I'm going to pull out Hebrune at the top of where we are coming from. And we're going to do a Nordic rune and then another Hebrune. So at the very top we have the Ayin. In the center, I'm going to take a Nordic rune, and we have Manas. Oh no, sorry, that's Awaz. Awaz. It's hard to read these gold on white here. And then at the bottom, on the dragon side, we have Dalit. Okay, very nice. So, starting with where we've been in the dragon energy, the Ayin is the letter that represents an eye in the body. And so it's about being able to see our way forward and also being watched over, that protective energy that comes with the dragon. Ayin is also, the number 70 in Gematria, and 70 is about a very large completion. So something is coming to an end, and it's true, the dragon year is coming to an end. The Gregorian year just came to an end. Of course, the month of Tevet is coming to an end. So we're having a really large ending here, 7 being the number of days of creation, and 10 times 7 being a very large ending or completion of a thing. Not that something is dead exactly, but that the project is over. And it's just the beginning of the new thing that's coming in. So Ayin is this idea of being watched over, being able to see our way forward, also completion in a large way, and also judgment. So there's judgment that comes with this because it is affiliated with the tribe of Dan. Dan meaning judgment. So we have completed something. We are looking at it. We are being watched over by the divine and by the dragon, and we're being able to assess how things have gone. And that's right where we are right now in terms of the dragon year coming to an end. In the center, we have the letter Awaz, and Awaz is a horse. You can't see it very well, but it looks like the letter M, but it represents spirit. It represents a horse being the spirit that we're riding. It's funny, I'm putting it on my hand, but I can see the M in my hand there too. So Awaz is that horse spirit that we ride that brings us to where we need to be next. And I love that too with regards to the dragon, because the dragon is something we can ride, that fiery energy, that moving forward, that almost warrior spirit that we ride in order to complete what we need to complete. And it is in the position, if we do this as the triple reading that I normally do, the position of the challenge. So our challenge here is, how do we ride that spirit forward even when things are hard, even when we feel overburdened? We're moving into this new phase and we have to transition from it. Maybe we've ridden this spirit horse to where we are now, and now we have to dismount and figure out what's next. So our challenge right in here is tapping into our spirit and how we're going to transition forward in a spiritual way from the dragon energy into the snake energy in this coming year. And our outcome or advice here is the Dalit. And Dalit, of course, is the doorway. It's about walking through the transitional space. It's about going through that liminal space that is the doorway from one place to another. And perfectly, here we are in that moment of transitioning from dragon into snake. Dalit is also seen as the birth canal. So it can be seen also as death in some ways, birth and death being very similar, going from one realm into another, going from the pre-life realm into the living, or going from life into the future realm. So big transition here with the Dalit. And I think that's beautiful, again, for the dragon, because we are coming out of a place where we have been challenged, where we've been carrying a lot, where we've been inspired perhaps, and seen our way forward, but that's coming to an end. We get to dismount off our dragon and walk through the doorway into the next phase. So my idea about how to do this next part is we're going to put down two letters, one from the Hebrew set and one from the Nordic rune set, that is our transitional bridge, bringing us into the next phase. So we'll start with the Hebrew, and this will be the crossbar. We have the pay, and then we'll take one of the Nordic runes as well, and this will tell us how to transition into this new phase. And we have algaes. Nice. So the letter pay, interestingly, is the number 80, so it comes right after the ayin. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see these a little more clearly. There we go. So pay is the number 80, and so it represents the infinity, the 8 being the infinity loop, times 10 being this ultimate manifestation of the infinite. So we're moving from a very large completion into the next phase, which is this pay, and pay also coils around itself like a snake. So, and also interesting, looks a little bit like that dragon curled around the way it is. Pei represents the mouth of the divine, specifically speaking creation into existence. So our way of transition is to say what we'd like to see in this coming year, to be able to imagine it and speak it into being, with using our voices the way the divine used their voice to create the universe, through words, through speech. Pei is connected to the idea of time. It's the first letter of the word pa'am, which means time in Hebrew. We've got this spiral linear time, where as years go around and cycles go around, in the same way that this letter goes around in a spiral, or a labyrinth sort of, we've got the concept of time going around, coming back to a similar point, but ideally being more mature, having created something or having grown in some way, that even though we're seemingly in the same place in, say, this time of year, we have changed. That even though time and the seasons come around, we have transitioned because we are new as we come into this place. So we're talking about blessing. We're talking about using our words to create beauty rather than ugliness. Pei is the binary transformation of grace and ugliness in the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation. So we want to lean into grace. We want to lean into beauty and turn away from ugliness, because we can make ugliness happen by speaking it. And we can't allow that to happen for ourselves or for anybody around us. We need to really use our words to create our reality in a beautiful way. And let that guide us through the labyrinth of time as we move forward and really speak what we'd like to see. And on the Nordic rune transition side, we have algaes, and algaes is the elk. You can see it looks a little bit like an antler, and it's elk, or the elk sedge even, which is a plant which has rough edges. So the algaes is about protection. It's about protecting ourselves, or being protected by the divine, being protected by the universe. So we can trust that we've got protection here with us as we transition through, that we can speak our minds, we can say what we'd like to see in the world and know that we're protected by divinity, and really lean into that knowledge that the divine has got our back, that we are watched over, as I said, with the ayin, but also we're just being protected, like with a giant elk and its antlers that are shielding us from anything that might come and bring us harm. So we can really lean into that protection piece that is here as we transition into the new year. Now, as we get into the snake side of things, I'm going to read a little bit about it in the book. We have the domestic snakes. And as I said, there are many different snake cards in this deck, but this one really appealed to me as far as the year of the snake that's coming up. So domestic snakes is the Six of Pentacles. The Six of Pentacles, as you may know in traditional tarot, is about giving and receiving. And here you see these pictures of all these snakes that are coming in. They're drinking from this bowl of milk, it looks like. The sun is rising through the window. Domestic snakes are said to represent good fortune, fertility, passion, sexuality, tolerance, protection, sharing, increase of wealth, guarding, duality, and change. And I love that with regards to the algaes. We have that all right there in that algaes rune. And, you know, again, with the protection and the guarding, etc. Domestic snakes are a sort of haltia, which is a kind of spirit whose purpose is to protect cattle, bring wealth, and help people conceive. Domestic snakes are usually harmless grass snakes that lived around the courtyard, like in the cowshed, under the residence, in the sauna, or under stone piles that were sometimes built for them beneath sacrificial trees. Grass snakes domesticated easily and found suitable places to lay their eggs in the dung heaps. It was also believed to protect humans and animals of the house from being bitten by poisonous snakes like adders. Sometimes they were seen as a sort of servant, and the mistress of the house could send them to bite someone who she felt had wronged her. So I just love that we have these happy little snakes. Usually snakes are seen as scary in our culture. But snakes here are about fertility and protection. You can see even there's a little bit of a heart up on the window there. And bringing us joy. And being, you know, they can be commanded by someone who is kind to them. So we're coming into the time of domestic snakes, which is transformation and change, but also fertility and protection and good fortune, passion. And as I said, the Six of Pentacles is about giving and receiving. So if we are kind to the snakes, they will be kind to us. And, you know, the year of the snake is sometimes seen as, again, that transformation after the dragon year, which has been fiery and challenging. We're coming into a time of transition, transformation, and fertility. And the snake, as you may know, is sometimes seen as a symbol of the goddess in the ancient Proto-Semitic religions. So here we have domestic snakes. We're coming into them. We're going to pull out some Nordic runes and another Hebrew for this side as well. So let's see what we have at the top. At the top we have Isa, which is just a straight line. In the center, we have Samech. And finally we have Othala. Very nice. Okay, this seems like a very clear message to me, but let's read it straight away. At the top, we have Isa, and Isa is the rune that represents ice. And it's stillness. So ice is very still, you know, it's water that has frozen. But Isa specifically is that stillness through which clarity comes. So it's sitting still in order to see your way forward. And it's a time of reflection and not rushing ahead. We may take time to sit. This is in the Elder Futhark. In the Younger Futhark, Isa is sometimes seen as a bridge, ice bridge. So you can read it a couple different ways, but I think of it as that stillness where we're sitting and we're listening, we're being still and we're knowing what we're supposed to do, without having to rush around and think too hard, but sit and listen and maybe let the snakes come to you rather than try to chase them down. So that is our first message coming into the snake year, is take some time to listen and be still. And then in the center, we have the Samech, and Samech, it circles around, it kind of looks like Ouroboros, the snake that it's eating its own tail, which is interesting. The Samech represents being surrounded with protection, being surrounded with bliss and joy. it's about boundaries. It's about setting up good boundaries around yourself. In the Proto or Paleo Hebrew, it looked like a thorn, so it has a little bit of agitation or irritation to it. But it's about putting up good boundaries of like thorny hedges around your homestead so that you are protected regardless of what might come in. And it's interestingly the number 60 in Gematria, so we've got 60, 70, 80 here, all on this reading. Samekh is saying, set up good boundaries for yourself, set up protections, make sure that you are safe within yourself. Make sure that you're safe within your home, that your people are safe, that you're all being surrounded. And it's that cycle and circle too, similar to the pay. It's that cyclical nature of the wheel of the year. But it's again more about boundaries in this case. And this is in the position of what's the fear or the challenge. And the challenge is setting up our good boundaries in this time when things are a little bit shaky in our country at any rate, for people who are vulnerable. So we want to protect. We've got algaes and right next to it Samekh, so protection is up. And the domestic snakes here are also about protection. So yeah, take care of your people. Surround yourself with people you know are safe and good, and make sure that you have good thorny boundaries so that no one can come in and take from you what is yours to keep. And at the bottom of our reading on this side, we have Othala. And Othala is the rune of home and homeland. So again, taking care of your home and your space. This is about feeling safe and comfortable where you are. And also relying on the ancestors. It's about inheritance on some level too. So yeah, really lean into the safeties and the protections that you have from your ancestors, and make sure that you feel at home where you are, and make sure your home and your family are all safe in that space. And then you'll find yourself in a good place for the snake year. It's a beautiful reading, really consistent as we go through. Back again, dragon year, we are seeing what has come before, watching that transition, and making sure that we know what to do next as we're judging that. We're looking back on what's come. The dragon has been fiery and a little challenging, a little burdensome. We have this the challenge of the Awaz, which is to ride that spirit through, even if it's a flamey dragon. Make sure that we're riding it safely and dismounting as we come to the other side, and then stepping through that doorway of Dalit as we get off the dragon, as we get off the horse and come into the new year. The way we transition is by thinking about and speaking what we would like to see in the coming year, and making sure we have our protections set up with algaes here, that we are safe, that our family is safe, and that our people are safe. When we come into the domestic snakes year, where we are being protective, being giving and receiving appropriately, first thing we want to do is sit, be still, and know what's the right thing to do. Set up those good boundaries and protections, even if it's challenging, and make sure our home is safe, that we're relying on our ancestors, knowing who is in our family and who isn't, and taking care of each other. Beautiful reading for those of you who chose the Mythologia Fennica deck. I hope you have a beautiful transition for this new moon and this new year coming in for the year of the snake. Chodesh Tov to all of you, and Lashana Tova of the Chinese year. I hope it's a beautiful transition and that you have a beautiful year of the snake as it comes in. We'll see you next time. Hello, those of you who chose the Wild Unknown Animal Spirit cards. We're going to take a look at your cards and see what they say. I mean, we know what they are, but so we have dragon and snake. And we'll read a little bit in the book about each of these as we go through the reading. And the way I'm going to do this, we're going to set dragon off to the left and we're going to set snake off to the right. And first we'll read a little about dragon, and then we'll pull out some letters to go with him. So we're coming from the year of the dragon. And for you, I mean, dragon years can be challenging for anybody, but particularly for people who are born in the year of the dragon. So if that's you, you may know that you've had a particularly challenging year and we're coming into the end of it. So this dragon card in particular, though, it says it's about seeing one's most true self and balancing the ego. That sounds about right and really hard. Dragons are said to see everything. Their essence has been with us since our first breath and will be there at our last. It watches us navigate the external world as well as our inner world. When dragon energy is awakened, we are courageous, visionary, and can easily drop into witness consciousness. It's almost as if we are traveling with a great friend inside of ourselves. When we look in the mirror, deep in our eyes, we may even glimpse the self behind the self, the one who is watching us. This is the power of dragon, breathing transformative fire into every cell of our bodies. Witnessing this omnipotent energy, even for a brief moment, helps us to surrender and let go. We let the dragon guide us. We hop on its back and ride. So it's work, but it's valuable work, but it's hard work as we come through dragon time. You know, it's got that fire with us, like the Agni, as they say in Sanskrit, and that is said to be an inner fire or sacred intelligence, sometimes like the inner fire of the Shekhinah, the indwelling presence of the divine. So we've come from this place of really facing ourselves in our egos and balancing that, being able to see through all the veils that we may have come from. And that's been a really hard year. So we're going to be moving into the snake, but before we do that, we're going to pull out some letters to go with our dragon. And the way I'm going to do this today is we're going to pull out 3 letters to go with dragon, and then 3 letters to go with snake, and a little bridge to bring them together. So I'm going to start out with the Nordic rune. And at the top of our dragon reading, we have Fehu. Fehu. We're going to pull out a Hebrew to go in the center here. And our center letter is the bait. And then we'll do another Nordic rune at the bottom. And we have Thorasaz reversed, which makes sense here. So at the top we have Fehu, and Fehu is cattle. It's about wealth and worth. And it's not money exactly. I mean, dragons hoard money, but it's not exactly money. It's the wealth that we tend, that which is our flock or our herd. So we're coming from a place with dragon where we've been having to watch over that which is valuable in our life and make sure that we're tending it very carefully so that it will remain of value. And that could be something about money, but it could be just about, you know, our joy, our relationships, our, maybe it's our property, but I think of it more metaphorical. So what is it we are tending? What is the thing that we tend in our life? Those family relationships, those friendships, those senses of inherent value that, you know, the values that we have to maintain even when times are hard, particularly when we're looking at our ego. How can we release what is superficial to us and really hold on to that which is deep and worth tending in order to give us the deepest value? And that's a really hard work. And when we've come from dragon, it's been a challenging year. So that's been the first thing that's up for dragon, we're coming from. In the center of our reading, we have the letter bait. And bait is home. It's about a house or a building. It can be about a building, but it's where we dwell. And it can be just as simple as us dwelling on this planet, or our bodies, the physical manifestation of the place that we inhabit. And this is in the position of the fear or challenge. So our challenge in this last year is, how do we take care of that place where we want to live, where we dwell, in order to make it through? And we have done that, but it has been a tricky year. Bait can also represent the mouth in the body. So maybe it's something about putting into our mouth that which is healthy, or not letting out of our mouth that which is unhealthy. So part of our challenge in this past year, where we're coming from, is our home, the sanctity of our home, the boundaries and the safety of our home, our planet, being able to take care of our space. And some of us have had some real big challenges with weather of this planet, with fires and snowstorms in strange places and such. So, it's been a dragon of a year with regards to our home and taking care of ourselves, our bodies, and our places where we live. And at the bottom, the outcome of this year has been Thurasaz reversed. Thurasaz is the thorn, or the gateway, or the giant. How do we face or walk through this really, really difficult gateway? This is really hard, and when it's reversed, it's almost impossible. It feels like this doorway has been closed and nailed shut and cemented over. And it's been a really, really hard doorway to walk through for those of you who chose this set of cards. And the dragon, again, the dragon year has been really hard. It almost looks like the eye of the dragon here. And there's that chime, that random chime that says, yes, this has been an almost insurmountable challenge, but we have made it. We've made it almost. We're almost there to the new year of the Chinese zodiac, going from dragon to snake. So yeah, we've had to tend our worth, and we've had to take care of our homes, and we've had to surmount this almost insurmountable challenge that we've come through. So in our little bridge that brings us from one year to the next, we're going to pull out 2 letters. First, we'll take out a Nordic rune for the first part of our bridge. And we have the letter Sovuilo. And then we'll take out a Hebrew to go with that. And we have Lamed. Okay, so for our bridge from dragon to snake, we have Sovuilo. Sovuilo is source energy. It's the sun. It's the sun in the sky. And it's that brightness, that shining source that gives us life. And it can be seen as the sun or the universe or the divine, however you read it. It's that source energy that gives you the power to do what you need to do. So as we're transitioning from dragon to snake, hold on to that which feeds you and gives you the energy. Whatever it is that you can do, and you can just do it all day and it just never tires you out. It feels natural and fun and full of joy and just feeds your energy rather than drains it. That's the thing that you want to lean into right now. Whether that be the divine or some project that you love to do, whatever it is, the divine in you that fires you up. And, dragon is fire also, but the sun is that source that even gives dragon its fire. So lean into your source, lean into the sun, and spend some time in the sun if you can, soaking up those rays. It'll get you through to our next transition. The other part, we have the Lamed, and Lamed is the letter that begins the word Lev, which is heart-mind. Listening into your heart, listening into the inner knowing in your body that tells you the right way to turn. Lamed is related to the intestines in the body, which is that part of our body that takes in whatever we've ingested and discerns what is useful for us and what is not useful for us. So it's also about learning and teaching. So there's something about taking in information, taking in food, taking in spiritual guidance, and being able to discern within yourself what is right and what isn't for you in this moment. So that's going to be the other part, leaning into source energy, but then really listening into your body, your heart, your mind to discern. I love that Lamed looks a little bit like a digestive tract, but it also looks a little bit like a sprout coming up and a root going down and that land across the center. So really grounding yourself and feeling those roots into the earth so that you can sprout up and reach up with hope toward the next thing. Lamed is the only letter in Hebrew that reaches above the line. So it's something about that reaching up toward the source energy for guidance and for discernment. But that source energy isn't just up in heaven. It is in you. It's in your body. It's in your gut and your kishkas. And this is what Lamed is saying here. Lean into source and discern appropriately. And then we move into snake. We're going into the snake year here, and we've pulled out this card. I'm going to read a little bit from the book about it. I like this one because it does look like it's biting its own tail, and it's got that beautiful rainbow pattern in the center. So snake is the guardian of unawakened magic and creative potential. The snake is a symbol of our highest potential. It is said that Shakti, our creative life force, lies dormant at the base of our spine in the form of a coiled snake. Regardless of whether this image rings true for you, it's well worth considering the amount of unawakened or untapped potential within. What would life look like if you woke it up? How can you stir it from its slumber? An experienced yoga or meditation teacher can lead the way. Make haste. The snake card appears when there is no more time to waste. So, time to wake up the snake. And snakes are all about transitions, right? They're all about shedding their skin and moving on to the next thing, growing. And in ancient times, the snake was seen as a symbol of the goddess, the Shekhinah, the Asherah, the one who is able to become over and over again. So we've got that potential for awakening and transition and finding that which is hidden and asleep within us. So let's pull out 3 more letters. We'll start with the Hebrew at the top of this set. We have the Tav, and then we're going to do a Nordic rune in the center. And we have the Lagus. Nice. And then at the bottom we'll do a last Hebrew. And we have Aleph. Very nice. So Tav being at the top of this is really interesting because Tav is the last letter of the alphabet. So it represents endings, but it also always represents new beginnings. And it's the letter that rules over the moon in the sky in the Sefer Yetzirah, the book of creation. So we have a finality, a completion here, and it is sometimes seen as the stamp or the seal or the signature on the alphabet, rather than a letter in itself. It's like the divine signed their name with the Tav. And Tav is that final letter of the word Emet, which means truth. The Emet, which is consisting of the first, center, and last letter of the alphabet itself. It's the binary transformation of sovereignty and slavery, and it's all about reincarnation, which is to say something has come to an end and it's beginning again, just like this snake, which has got its mouth on its tail and it's starting again right at the beginning. So even when things look like they're over, in comes something new, just like the moon as it transitions every month from darkness to light and back to darkness again. And some folks say that the Tav looks like the letter Dalet and the letter Nun together, which spells Din, which means judgment. So we've got something that's come to an end and there's judgment affiliated with it. I think about it as being also past generations that are stamped onto us through our DNA, that we have ancestral wisdom and ancestral trauma that comes with the Tav. So I'm thinking about how the Tav being here as at the beginning of the snake year is things are coming to an end and beginning again. This transition, this renewal that happens with the shedding of the skin, that even though we're at the beginning of the snake year, that snake will shed its skin all year long as growth happens. So Tav, starting out our reading on the snake side, and then we have Lagus, which is interestingly very similar to the letter Lamed. It's the letter that means heart. It's about flow. It's about water. It means lake in the Nordic, like Lach. And so it's about going with the flow, but also heart, emotion. And so we've got something here with the Lagus in that center position of a fear or a challenge. Is how do we go with the flow when things are transitioning? And it's a really, really big question. We listen to our heart. We listen in, and we try to be fluid. We try to let our emotions guide us, but not overwhelm us. It's a really tricky balance, but because we have to feel our emotions in order to get through them, and suppressing them will not help us. So as we go through the transitions, make sure that we feel what we feel and allow it to flow through us instead of getting stuck or wrapped up in hashing over challenges or difficulties. Let those tears flow so that they can be finished. Let the water flow. So that's our fear or challenge. Here's how to feel the emotions again without getting bogged down by them. And what that brings us to, fascinatingly, is the Aleph, the first letter of the Aleph Bet. So the number 1, going from Tav back to Aleph. So we're back to number 1, which is the first letter and the mother letter of air and breath. So breathe into it. This is our big answer for this year, is how do we get through all these transitions? We breathe. We take time to sit and listen to our breath. We take time to recognize that the breath comes from the one, the oneness of the divine. We recognize that balance is necessary, that there's the divine above and the earth below, and we balance somewhere on that teeter-totter. We are that which connects heaven and earth. Aleph is the first letter of the word Adam and Adama, which is human and earth itself. We are made of the earth. It's also the first letter of most of the divine names written in Torah. El, Elyon, Elohim, Adonai. There's just so many of the names of God that begin with Aleph, because Aleph is the one, the oneness of the divine. It's multiplicity within divinity, and also unity within divinity. That idea that there's one God, but infinite numbers of ways of seeing the divine. So I love that we have the divine here in terms of the oneness. We have the divine here in terms of the snake, which is the goddess. And this emotion, the heart mind that is speaking to us. So for those of you who chose this wild unknown cards, we have the dragon year, starting with tending our wealth, taking care of our home place, and having to go through this gateway and pass this giant and almost an insurmountable challenge. And as we come through the transition, lean into our source energy with Sowilo, discern, listening to our heart and our mind and our gut as we come into the new time. And it seems like an ending at the beginning. It seems like things have come to an end, but it's always a regeneration, like the snake biting its own tail, like the snake shedding its skin. We have this potential for great growth. Listening to our heart is going to be hard and hugely important, feeling our emotions, going with the flow. And it brings us back to the one, to the oneness of the divine, to the beginning again. So for those of you who chose this set of cards from Dragon to Snake, this has been your reading for this transition between Tevet and Shvat and Dragon to Snake year. I hope you have a beautiful Rosh Chodesh, new moon, as well as a Shana Tova, I guess Happy Chinese New Year. And I will look forward to seeing you here next time. Welcome those of you who chose the third pair of cards from the Soul Cards deck. This is not a tarot deck. It's a sort of oracle deck that is abstract, a bunch of paintings that's just done by an artist, and we get to interpret them however we'd like. But I did choose two cards today for you, which are the dragon and the snake. And we're going to set them up here, and we're going to talk a little bit about each of the cards, and then we'll pull out some letters to go with them as we transition from the dragon year into the snake year. So the dragon card that I chose, it's interesting. I love this card because it's so, the closer you look, the more interesting it becomes. If you turn it this way, it looks like a dragon, right? And it's shooting fire out. But when you look at it this way, you can see that there's a person inside the dragon who is made up of this coming out of its mouth. And then they are holding in their hand, which also looks like a dragon, another dragon that is coming out of their hand. So it's multiple dragons in one card. And the dragon year in Chinese astrology is a challenging year for everyone, and particularly those who are born in the year of the dragon. So you may be coming from a challenging year. I know that it was challenging for me, and yet we can be swallowed up by the dragon, or we can be the dragon, or both. We can also hold the dragon in our hand. And all of these things can be true in one picture. And the fire, which is seemingly engulfing us, is also giving us power on some level to do what needs to be done as we move from one thing to another, both allowing the power to consume us and feeding on that power to give us new life. So this is your dragon card, and this is where we're coming from, is this place of both having been swallowed by the dragon, maybe spit out by the dragon, and also birthing a new dragon out of our outstretched hand. So the way I'm going to do this reading is we're going to start with the dragon side, and we're going to do 3 letters that represent the dragon year we're coming from. We're going to build a little bridge between, and then do 3 letters about the snake year that is coming in. And these cards are bigger than the others, so I hope everything fits on our bowl here today. We can always move things around. So to start with, we're going to pull out 3 letters for the left side. We're going to start with the Hebrew letter at the top. We're coming from the dragon year. And at the top we have the letter Lamed. In the center we're going to do a Nordic rune. And we have the letter Lagus. And at the bottom we're going to do another Hebrew rune for the dragon side. And we have the letter Nun. Okay. Our dragon year has been a lot about trying to listen to our heart. Lamed is the first letter of the word Lev, and about having hope. It's the letter that reaches above the line with hope. So I see it as corresponding sort of to the star card in tarot, where we are reaching up with hope toward the divine, and we're planting ourselves firmly in the earth with this root, but kind of reaching up with our heart mind toward the divine. And in ancient Hebrew, Lev didn't just mean the heart in the body like a physical heart, but it did mean this marriage between how we think and how we feel, and that which gives us discernment. The words limud v'lamed begin with lamed, and they mean to teach and to learn. So it has something to do with learning what we need to learn and then turning around and teaching it to others. And in a way, that's the best way to learn something, is to teach it to another person. Lamed also is connected to the intestines in the body, which is that part of our body that takes in nourishment, discerns what is useful for our body, and then excretes that which isn't. And it looks a little bit like that intestinal tract where it comes down, gets digested, and then comes out the other end. So there's a lot that goes on with the Lamed in terms of It's not just the heart mind, but that discernment that comes through listening to our heart, mind, and gut. And this has been really important in this last year with the dragon. We've been being devoured. We've been both being eaten up by the dragon, and if we are the dragon, digesting what's useful and kicking out the rest. We've had to make some really keen decisions in this last year and listen to our hearts and minds in order to move forward and to have hope even when things look dark. Even when we're being swallowed by the dragon, we've had to have hope and really ground ourselves. So Lamed is here saying that, the dragon year has been a year of discernment. It's been a year of trying to tap into our heart. It's been a year of learning new things and teaching others new things. And having aspiration, hope, and optimism even when things look dark. Our fear or our challenge with the dragon year has been Lagos, and Lagos is the same letter almost. It's the letter that means lake. It's about water, but mostly about emotion and heart. So same, Lamed and Lagos are connected. They have this sense of feeling all of our emotions. But what's been challenging in the dragon year is how do we feel our emotions without drowning? Because the lake can be very, very wet, and it can be very, very deep, and it can be tempting to go into the tears and never come out. So the challenge we've had in the past year with the dragon is, maybe trying to use the water to put that fire out. Although certainly in the Chinese astrology there are water dragons as well. So getting into the water, feeling the emotions that we have had to feel without getting overwhelmed has been our biggest challenge in this dragon year that is just coming to a pass right now. Listening to our heart, but not getting drowned in our sorrows. That's been the hard part of the dragon year. And our outcome here at the bottom is Nun, and Nun is the letter that is about humility. You can see it looks like somebody who is kneeling down or bowing their head. And we've come to a place of Ne'aman, which is humility, at the end of this year. Even though we've worked hard and had hope and tried to listen to our heart and made good discernments, we've been humbled. That even though we have remained faithful and loyal to what is important to us, there's been some humility at the end of this year. Nun is the letter that is connected to the foundation of locomotion, so starting out slow and building up momentum as we go forward. Starting out slow because we're starting out on our knees, and we've had to fall to our knees maybe at the end of this year because it has been so challenging. But I think about Nun as being affiliated with the Hermit card. So really, when we have been swallowed by the dragon, sometimes we need to just sit inside of it and listen to what that's about so that we'll know what to do next. So our Nun has been the outcome of the dragon year, that humility that we've come into after all that attempt at discernment and not to be swallowed up by our emotions. Next, we're going to take a bridge across from dragon to snake. And we'll start with the Hebrew. And we have Dalet. And then we'll take a Nordic rune as well, as part of our stepping stones across to the snake. And we have Manas. Okay, so our bridge is made up of Dalet, which is a doorway. As we step from the dragon into the snake, we're going to go through this doorway. And Dalet is the letter that also, it means Dal means poor or humble. So it can also have that sense of humility too. As we walk through a doorway, we want to keep our head bowed so that we don't smack it on the cross piece at the top. So Dalet is about humility as we transition. It's this liminal space through which we are walking right now, from one month to another, from one year to another. It's also seen as the birth canal. So being born can be pretty challenging. We go head first, and it's, that delta of Venus, so feminine genitalia, about being born through the mother, through this watery place. Dalit is also the number 4 in Gematria, so it has this sense of sort of a stability with those 4 edges of the door frame as we walk through. So we're walking through, we're making some kind of birth or death or something that is giving us a chance to come out on the other side, and this is perfect. It's the binary transformation of wisdom and foolishness. So we're trying to make wise decisions as we walk through these gates. We're at this threshold. It's affiliated with the 4 seasons and the 4 elements, the 4 directions, the 4 letters of the divine name. Finding ourselves in the center of all 4 of those things and knowing that we are walking into a new world. And sometimes that can feel like a death. It can feel like a huge challenge. But there's renewal there. There's renewal there as we cross this bridge. And then on this side we have the manas, which is about humanity and our place in it. It's like the manifestation of how do we find ourselves in connection with others. It looks like 2 of the letter Wunyo facing each other, which is Wunyo is joy in the Nordic runes. So it's like facing each other with joy as we come out the other side, as we come through that doorway. We get to find our place in humanity now that we're born, now that we're coming into this new time. How do we find our place? What is our particular note in the song that we are singing with the rest of the people in the world? So that's our transition, is to come through the doorway and find our place in this new time frame. And then we're going to come into the snake year. And as I said, snake year starts on Wednesday. So this is an interesting card for snake because it's got that, the snake looks a little bit menacing. He's very large. He seems to be coming at this person who is sitting here, but the person does not seem alarmed. They seem curious that they're sitting here with their head all lit up, like they are an enlightened one who's just watching to see what the snake will do. Is the snake here for me? Is it going to attack? Am I just supposed to watch it as it comes at me? We don't know what the snake's got for us. And I think that's a really good attitude to come into the snake year with. The snake is an animal that sheds its skin. So it has the sense of renewal within it. It can be venomous, it can be poisonous, it can be a constrictor that could suffocate us. But we don't know what it's going to be. And this character in this card is just sitting and observing. I think it's a beautiful way to approach snake, to have our third eye lit up like this with enlightenment and not be too concerned about what happens with snake. The snake is also a symbol of the goddess in the very ancient times, so recognizing that all things come from the divine, whether they're frightening to us or not, is an important thing to keep in mind as well. So we're going to pull out 3 more letters. We have at the top, we're going to do a Nordic rune. We have Uruz at the top. In the center, we're going to do a Hebrune. Having a hard time juggling all these bowls here. In the center we have Shin. And we'll do one more Nordic rune at the bottom. And we have Kaunas. Very nice. Okay, so these 3 letters, Uruz at the top. Uruz is the wild ox, the aurochs. So it's about strength, finding strength in this time. And there's a wildness to it. It's not just domestic cattle. This is a wild ox. So we're coming up with our own strength. And it can be stubbornness as well, but I think it's a positive stubbornness in this case, where we're digging in our heels and we're remaining strong in the face of something that is quite intimidating. And I think that's a beautiful way to come into the snake year right now. We are remaining strong, tapping into our wild strength, and really planting our hooves so that we're not moved by this menacing snake that's coming at us. We don't really know what the snake has to offer, so we're just watching, knowing that we are big and strong enough to not be afraid of it. In the center we have the shin, and shin is fire. It's the mother letter of fire. You can see it looks a little bit like flames looking up from the bottom there. It's the aish, which has that same sh sound in it, like the shin. It's also sometimes seen as tooth, shine. So could be that there's teeth coming at us from that snake, or we're afraid of the teeth. This is the position of the fear or challenge. So it may be that we're afraid that that snake has teeth, or that that snake is going to burn us, or in the sense of the seraphs, which are fiery, snaky angels, seraphim, it could be that there's a fear of being bitten by a snake. And my chime there that just went off seems to be saying, yes, we have this fear of that venom that's coming to us through the teeth, through the snaky angels, the seraphim, which are sometimes seen as snakes and sometimes seen as angels, and they have fire. They're the fire snakes. But Shin is also about the indwelling presence of the divine, the Shekhinah, the feminine divine that lives within us. And the snake is seen as a symbol of the goddess, the Shekhinah. So there's transition that happens for sure with snakes. And there's always transitions when it comes to the divine. Shin is also the first letter of the word shuva, which means to return. So as we shed our skin, we return to our naked self, our basic self. We let go of that armor. So there is something about shedding our skin here that's a challenge. It's going to be a little bit of a challenge for us as we move into this snake year. But there's this creation element of fire also. There's both destruction and creation that comes with fire, and we know that even when fire is destructive, the ash that it leaves can fertilize the soil for greater growth. So we can trust and not be afraid. And I love that, again, in this picture, this character does not seem afraid so much as curious about what snake will bring. And with the bottom, interestingly, we have Kanaz. Kanaz is the rune which means a torch. So it's also about fire. And it's a torch that starts as a small ember, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and wider and wider and wider, and bursts into a blaze. So it's about something increasing vision, being able to increase vitality, abundance, all the stuff that is blossoming up, starting out small and then getting bigger and bigger and bigger, maybe like that snake is getting bigger, but in a really positive way, in the sense of fertility and the sense of growth. Again, when the snake sheds its skin, it's because it has grown and split that skin. So this torch, which is starting out as an ember and bursting into a giant flame of a bonfire, is going to be the outcome of our transition here into the snake year. So, for those of you who chose the soul cards, we've got the dragon, which appears to be eating us, but also generating us, and we're generating more snakes or dragons coming out of it. That top dragon almost looks like a snake. That we have had this time of discernment. We've had this time of having to hold on to our hope and really listen into our hearts. That we've had this fear of too much emotion, about being drowned into the lake, the waters of our tears and our grief. But we've come through with humility. And as we've come through with humility, we're crossing through the doorway on this bridge. We're going through the doorway and we're coming out and trying to find our place in the song of humanity, facing each other with joy. And the way this is going to start out is with strength, being planted firmly in what we believe, being planted firmly even in the face of something intimidating, that there may be some fears around fire, around biting, around splitting our skin around even our connection with the divine and not knowing where we stand with that. But as we come through, we'll know that that fire, that spark that's coming is going to open up into a larger and larger and larger flame, and there will be more abundance as we step into the snake year. So very lovely reading for those of you who chose the soul cards. I hope you have a beautiful transition from this month of Tevet into the month of Shvat, and from the dragon year into the snake year. So Chodesh Tov for your new month, and Lashana Tova, Happy New Year to your Chinese New Year. And we'll look forward to seeing you here next time.